Hello, welcome to another episode of the European Vegan Summit Talks. My name is Janowicz and I have the pleasure of speaking to you today on the behalf of organizers Green REV Institute. And the 2023 edition of the European Vegan Summit is taking place already next month, September 19th until the 21st. Join us from wherever you are based already today. Check our website, vegansummit.eu. And the European Vegan Summit is a place where activists, politicians, representatives of business and academics meet on one stage to connect the dots between the world of human rights, environmental rights, and animal rights. The European Vegan Summit 2023 will host 5 thematical panels, welcoming session, opening session, and 3 fireside chats with the participation of worldwide leaders and game changers. Today, I will be hosting the next episode of the European Vegan Summit Talks, and it is my great pleasure to present to you our guest, Claudio Pomo, Development Manager at Essere Animali. Claudio, it is great seeing you. Thank you so much for accepting our invitation.
Yeah, it's great to be here. Thanks to you, and thanks for all you're doing for the European Vegan Summit and these talks. They're amazing and very interesting.
Thank you so much. Today we're going to talk about the current food system, the challenges that are inevitable, but also about whether today's European climate policy is being responsible in the face of a worsening crisis. With this, I would like to ask you the first question. So the latest IPCC report states that in order to effectively fight climate catastrophe, a transition to a sustainable food that is one that is plant-based is needed. At the same time, the report points to aspects such as stopping deforestation and reducing methane emissions, which are directly linked to animal agriculture. So what is missing to put climate at the center of any policy development at the EU level and globally? Is the time for change for better coming, or are we talking about facing increasing climate populism and business as usual? The stage is yours.
Yeah, this is a tough question because it's very broad, and of course we cannot have a complete definite answer to that. I will tell you my view, and of course we have seen with whenever science tells there is need for change, politicians are always, reluctant to listen and to act, especially most of the politicians. And here there is a huge problem in our society, which I hope will be solved someday, which is, how we're talking about the EU, but in general, how the policies are, trying to keep the status quo. And things have been going like this for years, for decades, and especially older generation politicians, like the status quo, they fear the changes. Of course, I can understand that change can be unsettling, can be, can create some fear because, you have to re-envision. For example, we are talking about creating a new food system. You have to envision a new food system. You have to have a vision on how to create this future for the next generations of farmers or ex-animal farmers that will be just, I hope, plant farmers. And you have to see probably a loss of jobs, loss of profits in the near term for a lot of people. This will probably happen like it has happened with many huge technological changes in society or huge societal changes. So what is missing is probably the will to listen really to the problems that science is pointing to us, and the will for especially the younger politicians to take the stage. And because I'm talking about older and younger politicians, because I think it's quite visible the difference in how the younger generations also among politicians are with those listening more to these scientists and the climate crisis, and they're willing to do something. And they're willing to do something because they fear for their own future. So the younger generations have to have more voice in the parliament, in the European Parliament, in the whole society. So this is one of the main things that need to happen. And for this to happen, we need also younger generations to go to vote and to engage in politics, to engage, not of course, definitely only in party politics, but engage in politics somehow and be part of societal change. So I think that we need the younger generations to take, a bolder step and take this, make this change theirs and make it create action, not only, talking, because of course we need to discuss all the problems, we need to discuss the solutions, but we need also to create action, create something that is concrete.
Thank you so much. And you have already touched upon the change that you want to see in the future. So I will ask my next question, which is directly connected with the elections to the European Parliament that will take place next year. So from your perspective, from your experience, will the next term in the European Parliament speed up the removal of animals from our plates, or is it going to stay the same, or maybe we will see the regression? What do you think?
Well, we cannot know. What I can share here is what many animal welfare, animal rights, or environmental organizations think, which is the scenario could be probably negative with the next European Parliament because of it moving towards the conservative part. And as you have already seen, the conservatives have been trying to stop the major changes that have been proposed in different issues. And especially if we talk about the food system and the environmental action that we need from the EU Parliament, if it moves like we fear more on the conservative side, I don't see it positively. And this is the reason why we are already preparing, along with dozens of organizations in all Europe, for a big campaign and big effort towards the 2024 elections. So we want to, of course, work before the elections are taking place and have the parties and the MEPs to, listen to us and, adopt some policies that will be proposed to them. So this will be one of the main efforts, I think, for the European-wide animal rights movement and plant forward movement. And so this is a very important moment because I'm actually not so positive about what could happen in the next term for the European Parliament.
So what do you think the European food system will look like in, let's say, 20 years' time? What will be the predominant aspect of the EU citizens transitioning to plant-based food?
Yeah, also this is not an easy question, of course, it's just predictions, but I can see that there will be definitely in 20 years, definitely I'm positive there will be huge changes. Some forecasts say that 50% of the food could be plant-based. Some say just 1/3. But anyway, we can see that a big portion of what is now animal-based products will be taken off by plant-based ones. And the population will move probably slowly, but more and more towards plant-based diets. And this is happening, and this will continue to happen. And as I said before, continuing on the political side and policy side, of course, in 20 years, I'm quite sure there will be some huge changes also on policy side from Europe, at least. But I think that this will happen probably later and not in the near future, or at least not as fast as we would like, not as soon as we would like. And but we will see, I expect at least that there will be a greater and greater disruption by companies. There will be more capital, I hope, moved, and financial opportunities moved to the plant-based sector. And along that, also consumers, and especially, as I said before, the younger generations, which will be in 20 years, they will be there will be no more the students. There will be the fathers and mothers, or maybe just the adults of these societies. So they will be creating families probably that will have different criteria, different morals, different attitudes. So I see that it will be probably altogether there will be a huge switch in this food system in Europe. But I fear that what should be needed now, really, I repeat, is European policy will not arrive as soon as it should be, and as soon as scientists are saying that it should happen.
So the need for changes is greater and faster than the legislation that comes from the European level.
Yes, I think so. And I see that often it happens quite often that politics are much slower than reality, let's say, societal changes. And politics often adjust to society when the change has already happened in a large portion of society, or at least has been approved by the majority of society. And at least this happens in the majority of countries. There are some that are more advanced, there are some that want to be the virtuous ones and are faster. But especially if we talk about the EU, which is such a big entity, it's not easy to get change. And as I was saying before, the status quo and the lobbies that are defending the status quo are very strong. And so in the future we will see probably bigger fights. I mean, not physical fights, but there will be stronger fights to defend the status quo and to change the status quo and create the future. So we have to expect a lot of resistance for what we are asking for, because what we are asking for means changing completely the life of dozens of thousands of animal farmers at the moment, and they do not want to do it. And even if scientists say so, and even if they will have to do it someday, but there will be resistance, and we have to expect that and be prepared for our strategies.
Some are saying that the greatest progressiveness comes from the local level rather than national and European level. I wanted to ask you about your perception of this idea.
Yeah, of course, it depends on probably country to country, but also I can say in Italy, this is also happening in many cases, that it's easier to get change on the local level. And also on the local level, it's easier to get for a supportive politician or supportive party to create a program, to start it, to get it approved. And when we're talking about creating change especially in a country like Italy, which is a huge country, creating change in the parliament, it is, really a huge thing you have to do. And so it's not easy. And this is why probably smaller changes on the local level, adding one on the other, can also bring, some momentum that can then move on to the national parliament.
And I wanted to jump to another very interesting question. I actually was waiting to ask you this for a long time. What about animal-based food successors? You are fighting for naming without censorship or plant-based meat censorship in Italy. I wanted to ask you if you could share more about that, and if you could share also who came up with this idea of censorship and what is the reason behind it.
Yeah, this is one of the campaigns we wished not to do this year, and we have been forced to do. And so because we just found out in the first months of the year that this proposal has been put in the parliament in the end of December last year by Lega, ex-Lega Nord, and no more called like that, which is, we can call it a populist party in Italy, and they're part of the current majority in the government. And this party is strongly connected with farmers and also with hunters. And so they're very connected with these, the lobbies of these, if we talk about farmers. And they're proposing some laws like this one, and also the cultivated meat ban, because they've been asked to, and because they've been lobbied strongly by this by the farmers to do. And so what we are facing at the moment is a ban. Just to explain better the situation, we are facing a ban that will prevent plant-based products to use words like ham or steak or burger or any other name that is called meat-sounding name. And so they call it a law against the meat-sounding. And the law is, we could say, funny if it was not sad and depressing, because actually the way it is written, it's not 100% clear. They also mix cultivated meat with plant-based foods. They make a lot of mistakes, and they say a lot of things that are actually not really 100% true. But unfortunately, the law is probably going on, especially at the moment is being discussed in the commission, agriculture commission at the Camera. Camera is the lower part of the Italian parliament. We have Camera and Senate. And so we know, all the activists know that when we present laws, it takes sometimes years to see them discussed. And this has been the discussions have started after probably a few weeks. And so we managed to put a lot of pressure against it. We managed to create a coalition of animal rights organizations, of environmental organizations, consumer organizations. And so we managed to get a lot of not only signatures on our petition, but also media attention. And also we managed to get a lot of politicians and parliament members on the opposition to listen to us and listen to our voice and listen to the companies especially. And what is happening at the moment is there has been in this commission, in the Agriculture Commission, there's been some official hearings. And in the first one, there were only, let's say, parts lobbying, parts that were in favor of the ban. And there were farmers, organizations. But the second hearing was, there was also one of our representatives of Essere Animali, and also there were representatives of 3 different consumer organizations, and they were all against the ban. So this is very good, because for us it's very important, especially not to have just, vegan or animal rights organizations defending plant-based products, but also the consumer organizations, especially because the European Consumer Organization, in a poll of a couple of years ago, asking the question whether consumers were confused by these names, had a huge positive response that they were not misleading. And Italy was the country in Europe with a higher percentage, with 88% of Italians saying they were not really confused by these names. So it's very important to state that. And it's also very important to state that, as I was saying before, the funny but not funny side of this law is that it states, in the first line, it states, this is a law designed to defend the agriculture, the farming system in Italy. So it is not written, and they say it to defend consumers. And then in another line, they say, we want to defend the Italian companies. But the strange thing is they want to defend just Italian farmers. They want to defend the farmers associations. They want to defend these products, but they will create huge problems and economical problems to Italian companies that create plant-based products. Because even if most vegans say, I don't care whether it's called a burger, whether it's called a steak, I will eat it anyway. But you have to think about, the average person that sees these products for the first time. And it's very important to have these kind of names, because they can find, immediately they can understand what this product on the supermarket shelf is made of, or at least what it should taste like, or how they should cook it. And also it's very important to see that the companies that are probably getting affected by this law will have to spend huge amounts of money to create new names, to create new marketing, and to create new packages and packaging. And so it will be a huge waste of time and money. And also it could affect somehow also, the perception of the average meat-eating consumer that could be either flexitarian or, reducitarian that is interested in these products. And so this is why this law is very dangerous. And this is why also probably the farmers lobby and the farmers association want it.
I have to ask you, from your perspective, what is the future of the censorship of plant-based food at the European Union level?
Well, at the European Union level, we have already seen a refusal. We have seen that the EU doesn't want, and as stated, the EU doesn't want any censorship on plant-based food. And the EU is promoting plant-based food, even if, as I said before, we need more action, we need more, concrete actions to promote them. But at least in words, they're defending them, and they've been defending them towards a similar attack that was, stated a few years ago. And so this is also very important for us, and also for, let's take the example of France, which has seen a similar ban going into place. And we are also networking with organizations in France and all over Europe to prevent, to stop this French ban, and also to prevent this to spread among Europe. And so I don't see the risk actually to, at least I hope, there will be no risk to see again a ban, a European-wide ban. But it's very scary to see that they're trying to make it happen in one country after the other, and try to, in this way, to prevent the EU statement.
I also wanted to ask you about the cooperation and partnership between the different actors. You have mentioned that it's really important to have the visibility of not only organizations that work for climate, biodiversity, animal rights, but also others. Why is it so important, and how significant it is in the current debate about food system transition?
Yeah, it is very important, because whenever an animal rights organization gets some media spotlight, or at least, let's say, we managed to speak at the parliament last week in defense of the plant-based foods. Of course, we have seen like biased, because we are the animal rights people, we are the vegans, we are, we are already on that side. And when we have also environmental organizations, which of course are already seen similarly to the animal rights organizations, but are a little more mainstream and a little more accepted, like where they're less extreme, let's say, even if we are not extreme. But it's even more important when we have consumers organizations on our side, and defending change in the food system, and defending the need also for sustainable and healthy foods for consumers, and also when they they get along with us against this kind of censorships, and also against, let's say, fake promotions of, foods like that are misleading, really misleading for consumers, like some meat products that are advertised as healthy, despite, science saying they're not so healthy, they should not be consumed as much as they are at the moment. And so it's very, very important to get all these more, let's say, use the word respected organizations along with us, and so that we can show that animal rights and organizations and vegans organizations are not extreme, are not fringe. We are just part of a huge change in society that is really needed.
So there are elections to the European Parliament coming up next year. So my question to you is, what do you think? What is the future of the animal rights movement?
Well, as I said before, also it's a huge moment for us, for the whole movement, because whenever there is elections, there can be also promises by politicians, by parties, and it's a good moment to, lobby them, to ask for, changes, pledges. And so, but there will be a lot of work, and I see that the next years will be we'll see a huge focus of the movement towards changing the status quo of farm animal farming. And we expect to see now this year, with the current revision of the European law by the Commission, we expect to see some huge changes. And I hope we will not be disillusioned by the Commission and by the Parliament. And so we hope that 2024 will be the moment when we will talk with the Parliament to implement these changes that the Commission is already asking. And so this is the hope, even if at the moment there is, as I stated also before, there is already a strong fight between, let's say, Copa Cogeca, which are, farmers' lobby, and they're strongly opposing any change. So it's a difficult situation because the animal rights movement is growing. It's growing in visibility, it's growing in successes, it's growing in acceptance by the public, and the politicians and the MEPs are listening more and more to the animal rights movement. And this is also the reason why the fight is getting bigger, because we are no more a fringe, small movement that can be, can be seen as invisible, but we are visible, and the public is with us, and unions and farmers associations are scared because they see change is coming. So I'm quite positive because everything we're doing is getting better and bigger, and change is happening, even if slowly. But we have to expect, as I said already before, expect a lot of resistance. It will not be easy at all.
Let's talk at the end about the legislative changes that you would like to see at the national level. So what should be mandatory in any local food policy in any country in the European Union?
So this is quite a broad question. Of course, we would like to see, let's talk about local level, let's talk about, national level, whatever. There should be, of course, animal welfare at the center. And I will not go into details about all the animal welfare requests we're having along with, all the European organizations. But of course, no more cages, no more, mutilations for animals, more space. And, at least what they call animal welfare in farms is not welfare at all. And so this should be at the center. But of course, at the center with it should be the, a vision that is plant forward, that is to change the food system into a plant-centered food system. And of course, as will not be a fast happening change. This will be something that will take years, definitely. But if we do not start now, we will never see it happen. And I'm positive about what I've been saying, that quite negative things about change not happening enough at policy level. But what I'm positive about is that at least the discussion is started. The fact that there is a sustainable food system discussion at the EU level, the fact that animal welfare laws are being revised by the Commission. So at least something that was not taken into account years ago, it's part of the discussion. It's part of the discussion on the local, national, and international and EU level. And this is the first step, of course, for creating change. So we have to be positive, at least, about it, because I've been in this movement for a lot of years, and what I've seen the last few is really a huge shift in how all the issues that we care of have taken the stage, are at the center of the debate, even if they're always diluted, they're always, delayed, but they're at the center of the discussion. And so we need definitely some more forward-looking policies for a change towards a plant-based system. And this can happen both at local level, where, as I said before, we were saying before, it's easier to get a change. So my advice is also to activists and organizations to start and work with local administrations and try to have, some pioneering food policies. For example, I think everybody in the world looks at what is happening now in New York, for example. New York is a great example. Of course, they have a vegan mayor, which helps, but what they're doing with their program is really great. And there is also some other good programs around the world also. And in Italy, we have a few cities which are leading the way in their food policies. And also we have, most of these food policies are vaguely talking about sustainable food and more healthy food. And of course, they invite people to eat more fruit, more vegetables, and also more sustainable means local food and also less food waste. But just a few of them, really a few are open to debate the fact that a healthy and sustainable diet needs less and less meat and more plant proteins. And so this is part of also the work we are doing. We're working with companies, with universities, and also with administrations to try and have food policies that are actually moving in this direction and moving towards a more plant-centric food system.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your experience. That was my last question. And if there's anything else that you would like to add, to share with our viewers, then I very greatly much invite you to do so.
Yeah, I was very happy to speak here. I hope I've been clear on my views. They were not easy questions at all, of course, but they're very good also because they made me think too. And so what I would like to add is that I'm very interested in the last years, especially on the work on about food policies, and I really would like more organizations starting these kind of programs, because even a small change of replacing meat proteins or animal proteins with plant proteins on a huge scale of, if we're talking about schools, hospitals, we're talking about universities, we're talking about huge companies, these all together, then they can create a much larger change, especially, saving also the lives of so many animals. And so this is a very interesting project and part of the programs that we're running. And I hope the movement, as it's growing around in the world, with this kind of movement, and I hope more organizations can start these kind of programs that are really, I see, quite effective, as I said before, with examples like New York, which are really, showing the way.
And if you'd like to know more about work that Essere Animali is doing, I greatly invite you to follow their social media and visit their website for the latest updates. Thank you, Claudio, for joining us today and for your replies for our hard question. And it was a pleasure to chat with you. And to all the viewers, thank you so much for watching us. And please save the date, 19th to 21st of September, European Vegan Summit 2023. From my side, I want to encourage all of you to follow the European Vegan Summit and Green REV Institute on all social media platforms to stay up to date with the news on the next edition of the new episode of our online talks. Thank you so much and see you soon.